World War II was not merely a struggle between ground forces and tanks. Its most decisive moments were experienced high above the clouds. The sky became a ruthless theater of war, dominated by the most terrifying and technically advanced aircraft in history, the bombers. These giants of the sky were capable of carrying tons of destruction hundreds and thousands of kilometers away, crushing superpower defenses and changing the course of history. At number 10 is Nazi Germany's Luftwaffe's most famous early war aircraft, the Heinkel He 111. The design of the plane began back in 1934, and due to restrictions of the Treaty of Versailles, it was initially disguised as a fast passenger airliner. When the war began, this twin-engine bomber formed the spearhead of Germany's Blitzkrieg. The aircraft was easily recognized by its fully glazed, aerodynamic, and modern cockpit structure. The Heinkel He 111 was equipped with two Junkers Jumo engines, providing a solid cruising speed. The aircraft caused devastating damage in Poland and France, but during the Battle of Britain, its weaknesses were exposed. The defensive armament was too light against British Spitfire fighters, and its bomb load was limited compared to later Allied giants. Despite this, it remained in Luftwaffe service until the very end of the war. At number 9 is the American Douglas A-26 Invader, which was one of the most modern sights of the late war. Introduced in 1944, the aircraft was designed to replace older light bombers. The Invader was exceptionally fast, reaching top speeds of over 570 kilometers per hour thanks to its two powerful Pratt & Whitney engines. It was capable of executing bombing missions without the protection of friendly escort fighters. The Invader was famous for its adaptable nose, which could be outfitted with up to 8 heavy machine guns or even a 75mm cannon for strafing missions. The fuselage and wings could also carry a significant bomb load. The aircraft's design was so advanced and reliable that the United States used the same heavily modified plane type years later, both in the Korean War and the jungle battles of Vietnam, for low-level strikes. At number 8 is the most critical aircraft type in Soviet aviation history, the Ilyushin Il-2 Sturmovik. This was a heavily armored ground attack plane that always carried a bomb load as well. The brilliance of the aircraft's design lay in the fact that its engine, cockpit, and fuel tanks were protected by a unified steel shell up to 12 millimeters thick. This made the plane exceptionally durable against enemy anti-aircraft fire. An astonishing number of over 36,000 Sturmoviks were produced during the war, making it the most manufactured military aircraft in history. Dictator Joseph Stalin himself stated that the Il-2 planes were as essential to the Red Army as bread and air. The cannons, rockets, and anti-tank bombs mounted under the aircraft's wings caused devastating damage to German panzers in the east. It was a decisive weapon which the Germans called the Black Death. Rising to number 7 is the most versatile masterpiece of Nazi Germany's aviation industry, the Junkers Ju-88. The aircraft was originally designed in the mid-1930s as a high-speed bomber capable of outrunning enemy fighters. It featured two powerful Junkers, Jumo engines, and an aerodynamic fuselage. As the war progressed, this airframe proved so successful that it was modified for almost every imaginable role in aerial warfare. The Ju-88 was capable of executing steep dive bombing runs, making its strikes extremely precise. It also functioned effectively as a heavy fighter, night fighter, reconnaissance plane, and anti-shipping bomber in the Atlantic. The aircraft was highly popular among pilots due to its reliability. The plane type also played a major role in Finnish history, as the Finnish Air Force purchased these planes from Germany and used them with success in 1944. At number 6 is the American Consolidated B-24 Liberator, which was a technically highly advanced heavy bomber. The aircraft utilized a completely new narrow Davis wing profile, which gave it an exceptionally long operational range and a high cruise speed. Over 18,000 Liberators were produced during the war, making it the most manufactured American military aircraft of all time in history, equipped with 4 Pratt & Whitney engines. The Liberator could carry a heavier bomb load and fly further than the famous B-17. Thanks to this long operational range, it played a decisive role in the Battle of the Atlantic. The planes patrolled over the ocean and hunted German U-boats in areas that other aircraft could not reach. However, the plane was difficult to fly, and piloting it required great physical strength. Rising to number 5 is the North American B-25 Mitchell. This twin-engine medium bomber was one of the most reliable and versatile aircraft of the war, serving on all fronts. The plane was named after the pioneer of American military aviation, General Billy Mitchell. The B-25 was famous for its easy handling, rugged structure, and its ability to operate from short and poorly maintained runways. The aircraft wrote its name into history in April 1942 during the legendary Doolittle raid, where 16 B-25 planes took off from an aircraft carrier deck to bomb Tokyo. The raid was technically almost impossible, but it boosted American morale tremendously. In the Pacific, the nose of the plane was often outfitted with up to 8 heavy machine guns or a 75mm cannon, used to devastate Japanese warships and island bases. At number 4 is perhaps the most iconic symbol of the air war, the American 4-engine Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. The aircraft earned its name due to its formidable defensive armament, which included up to 13 heavy machine guns. These guns were positioned around the plane in powered turrets, allowing the crew to fend off Nazi Germany's Luftwaffe fighter attacks from almost every conceivable direction. The B-17 carried the primary burden of the United States' daylight strategic bombing campaign over Germany. The aircraft wrote its name into history thanks to its incredible durability. There are hundreds of photographs and stories of planes that returned to their bases in England, even though their fuselages were riddled with holes. Rudders were nearly torn off, and 2 engines were on fire. It was beloved by its crews for bringing them home. Rising to number 3 is the most ingenious invention in British aviation history, the de Havilland Mosquito. While other warring nations built their bombers out of heavy aluminum and steel, the Mosquito was made almost entirely of wood, primarily balsa and birch plywood. This saved critical metal resources and allowed furniture factories to be utilized for aircraft production. The plane was so light that it required no defensive weapons. Equipped with 2 powerful Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, the Mosquito was so incredibly fast that German fighters could not catch it during the middle years of the war. Its only defense was its speed, which exceeded 600 kilometers per hour. The aircraft executed extremely dangerous and precise low-level bombing raids directly against Gestapo headquarters and prisons. It suffered the lowest loss rate of any aircraft type in the entire war. At number 2 is the backbone of the British Royal Air Force, the 4-engine Avro Lancaster. This giant was the most effective heavy bomber in the European theater of war. Its greatest advantage was its exceptionally massive and undivided bomb bay. While other nations' aircraft had divided bomb bays, the Lancaster's open bay allowed it to carry massive specialty bombs that no other plane could even lift off the ground. The Lancaster was equipped with 4 iconic Rolls-Royce Merlin engines. The aircraft became famous for destroying German dams using special water-skimming bouncing bombs. Late in the war, it was capable of dropping the 6-ton Tallboy and even the 10-ton Grand Slam megabombs, used to obliterate Nazi underground bunkers and battleships like the Tirpitz. It was the British military's most effective weapon against German industry. Rising as the best and most advanced bomber of World War II is the American Boeing B-29 Superfortress. This aircraft was a miracle of engineering, with a development program that cost more than the Manhattan Project, which built the atomic bomb. The Superfortress featured a fully pressurized fuselage, allowing the crew to fly at exceptionally high altitudes without oxygen masks or thick flight suits. The B-29 utilized analog computers that automatically aimed and controlled the aircraft's defensive weapons. Gunners sat in sighting blisters, operating distant gun turrets using switches. Equipped with 4 giant Wright engines, the aircraft dominated the skies over the Pacific. It flew so high and fast that Japanese fighters could not reach it. The plane dropped the first atomic bombs in history, bringing the war to an end. Before our final conclusion, we must make a special honorable mention of one of the most recognizable aircraft in history, the Junkers Ju-87. better known as the Stuka dive bomber. This aircraft was instantly identified by its inverted gull wings and fixed landing gear. The Stuka was neither large nor fast, but its ability to dive almost vertically toward a target made its bombing surgically precise during the early war. The most terrifying feature of the Stuka was the mechanical siren mounted on its landing gear, known as the Jericho trumpet. As the aircraft entered a steep dive, the airflow forced the siren to emit a spine-chilling, loud wail. This sound was designed purely as a psychological weapon to spread terror and panic among ground troops and civilians below. Though it became obsolete later, it left a dark mark on military history.